Hello everyone, I am Jason. The moment this three-dragon image appeared, SpaceX looked like the dominant force, standing in the center with fierce red eyes, while Tesla and XAI looked more like side characters with playful expressions. The title had only one word, Terafab. The message sounded huge. 80% of the chips are supposed to go straight into space for orbital AI. That immediately raised a tough question for Tesla investors. The Tesla shareholders are putting up the most money but getting the smallest share of the benefits. Is this really a win for all three companies? Or is it a major transfer of resources dressed up as a grand partnership? Stay with me because today we are going to break it all down. Tesla stock closed Monday at $380.85, up $12.89 on the day, a gain of 3.5%, with volume of about 72.6 million shares. But the real story is not just the stock move. It is this so-called three-dragon image that exploded across the internet. On the left, Tesla looks playful. In the center, SpaceX looks intense and powerful. On the right, XAI feels more like a supporting act. The image gives off one very clear impression. SpaceX is the boss. And once people connect that with SpaceX already absorbing XAI in an all-stock deal, plus the claim that most Terafab output will be sent to orbit, a lot of Tesla investors naturally feel uneasy. At first glance, this sounds like a shared project among three Musk companies. But as soon as you look deeper, the concern becomes obvious. Tesla is the listed company with public shareholders, so many people believe Tesla may end up bearing a large part of the cost while receiving a smaller portion of the direct payoff. That helps explain why the news created excitement, but TSLA still struggled to move decisively beyond the $380 range. So today I want to focus not just on the headline, but on the real pessimistic views people are voicing online. Let's put the facts on the table first. Musk just held an event at an old power plant site in Austin, near Giga, Texas, where he formally introduced Terafab as a path toward an advanced chip fabrication strategy. The plan begins with a smaller-scale advanced technology fab test operation, but the final goal is enormous. Musk is talking about 1 terawatt of annual AI compute output. The scale sounds almost absurd. By his frame, it could eventually involve around 100 million square feet, roughly equal to 10 Giga Texas sites, or about 15 Pentagons. Musk even said that all existing chip factories on Earth combined can only meet about 2% of the demand from his three companies. The first product is expected to be the AI-5 inference chip, supposedly 10 times more powerful than AI-4, followed later by a D3 chip designed specifically for satellites and space applications. It sounds bold, ambitious, and futuristic, but that is exactly why so many people are skeptical. In some circles, this is being seen as yet an example of Tesla resources flowing outward. Look at Tesla's numbers first. Full year 2025 revenue was about $94.8 billion, down 3%. Automotive revenue fell for a second straight year. Net income dropped from around $7.1 billion to $3.8 billion, a decline of roughly 47%. Gross margin was crushed by the price war and fell to about 4%. Free cash flow was around $6.2 billion, and cash reserves were about $44.1 billion. Now look ahead to 2026, when Tesla has already guided capital spending above $20 billion, compared with only $8.5 billion in 2025. Then, add a Terafab build-out that some estimate could reach $25 billion over time. Even if that $25 billion is not spent all at once, the yearly cash burn could still be massive, potentially turning free cash flow negative. Tesla CEO reportedly admitted that Terafab-related costs have not been fully reflected yet. So this is the core fear. Tesla vehicle growth has stalled, profits have been cut almost in half, and now the company may be spending heavily to build cutting-edge chips at the 2-nanometer level. What makes investors even more uneasy is that a large share of the future output is not expected to go into Tesla vehicles at all. It is expected to support space-based AI ambitions. Morgan Stanley has reportedly described this as a Herculean task, with meaningful output unlikely before 2028 at the earliest. That is a very long runway for something so capital intensive. Then there is the structural issue. SpaceX has already absorbed XAI, while Tesla previously put in around $2 billion and now appears to hold less than 1% of SpaceX in converted exposure. Musk himself owns roughly 13% of Tesla, but about 43% of SpaceX. So even if Terafab is described as a joint venture, many people suspect that Tesla's public shareholders could end up funding a project whose strategic upside leans more heavily toward Musk's privately controlled empire. That is why critics say Musk may keep making concessions in favor of SpaceX, while Tesla contributes money and resources. Ask yourself whether that sounds like a symmetrical arrangement. Tesla has never built an advanced leading-edge fab before. This kind of project requires more than 2,000 process steps, extremely expensive lithography systems from ASML, world-class engineering talent, and years of painful yield ramping. This is not something you solve with slogans. TSMC took years to stabilize its 3-nanometer ramp. Samsung's Taylor Fab in Texas has reportedly spent around $17 billion and still has not fully ramped the way people expected. TSMC's Arizona fab has involved around $65 billion and only recently started limited 4-nanometer output. Some estimates suggest Tesla's early yield could be only 20 to 30% for the first couple of years. That learning curve is brutally expensive. Then move to the orbital compute side. Musk says that within 2 or 3 years, space-based compute could become cheaper than ground-based compute because solar power in orbit is constant and Starship launch capacity will keep improving. But the real challenge is thermal management. In vacuum, there is no convection and no conduction, only radiation. A megawatt-scale AI cluster in space would need enormous radiator area. And even if Starship capacity rises quickly, launching AI satellites would still require thousands of launches. After deployment comes the maintenance burden. Radiation, micrometeoroids, and solar storms all become serious threats to hardware. What is interesting is that Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang has also talked publicly about orbital data centers. In a conversation with Lex Fridman, he said there is effectively round-the-clock solar energy in space and a huge amount of unused power that could be harnessed. He acknowledged the heat problem, saying there is no conduction and no convection in space, only radiation, but argued that space is large and giant radiators could be deployed. He said Nvidia has already sent engineers to study the issue and that they are learning a lot. That does support the idea that orbital compute is not pure fantasy, but it also confirms how technically difficult it really is. So is Terafab worthless? Not necessarily. I think there are 4 broad scenarios. In an optimistic case, Cybercab and Optimus scale rapidly, demand explodes, and Terafab ramps yield smoothly, turning into a true Tesla moat with lower chip costs, more secure supply, and stronger technological secrecy. In that case, $25 billion might eventually look like a brilliant investment with very high returns. In the more moderate optimistic case, which I think is more realistic, Cybercab and Optimus expand steadily but not explosively. External foundries still help with AI-5 production, and Terafab becomes a valuable long-term learning investment. In that world, Tesla's energy business keeps growing, FSD subscriptions improve gradually, and the stock may trade sideways before recovering slowly over time. The more cautious scenario is that demand grows more slowly than expected, and Terafab yield remains weak, turning the fab into a very expensive lesson. The company may survive just fine, but shareholder returns stay under pressure for much longer. The most bearish scenario is much worse. Yield never ramps properly. Tesla continues losing share in China to companies like Xiaomi and BYD. Europe stays weak and cash flow deteriorates sharply. That could force more ATM issuance and shareholder dilution, while SpaceX keeps benefiting from chips that support its orbital ambitions. If that happens, the asymmetry becomes more obvious and the legal and governance tensions could intensify. In the short term, the key things to watch are Cybercab production and rollout, and whether AI-5 shows good yields at TSMC or Samsung before Terafab becomes anything more than an ambitious promise. Before I wrap up, there is one more related development. Blue Origin has reportedly filed with the FCC to deploy Project Sunrise with up to 51,600 low Earth orbit satellites designed for AI and cloud computing in space. The proposed orbital range is roughly 500 to 1,800 kilometers. What makes this especially interesting is the timing. Not long after Amazon had asked the FCC to reject SpaceX's much larger orbital data center concept as lacking technical detail, Blue Origin suddenly arrived with its own detailed plan. That has led many people to call out the double standard. SpaceX even responded by pushing Amazon's own earlier objections back into the regulatory record, essentially saying that if regulators want to use that standard against SpaceX, they should use the same standard against Blue Origin too. So this is becoming bigger than one company. It is turning into a true battle among major industrial giants over the future of space-based AI infrastructure. And that may be the biggest takeaway of all. Space is no longer just a stage for one visionary company. It is becoming a battleground for national-scale ambition, corporate rivalry, and next-generation compute infrastructure. The FCC's eventual decision will matter, but even more important will be who actually gets the first orbital AI servers running at scale. Jensen Huang also had praise for Elon, saying that he admires how Elon goes directly to where the problem is and works on it firsthand. He was making the point that Elon is not just a theorist. He is an engineer leader who gets involved on the ground. Whether you are bullish or bearish, that kind of leadership style is one reason Tesla, SpaceX, and XAI have repeatedly pushed into areas many people once thought impossible. Thanks for spending your valuable time with me. I am Jason. Let me know your view in the comments, and if you want more timely and accurate updates on these topics, please like and subscribe.